Adrian, welcome back to Outlier Academy. Thank you so much for coming on, this time for 20-minute playbook.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So, for people that haven't listened to the other interview, which I'm going to plug at the end and which I highly encourage everyone to listen to, which is all about Forward, can you just give people a quick sketch of your background and a quick overview of what you're building at Forward?
Yeah, I'm a serial entrepreneur. That means I specialize in Honey Nut Cheerios. No, really. I started a bunch of different companies in the tech space. Spent a little time over at Google, working with Larry on a bunch of the special projects, starting a bunch of the Alphabet companies, and now I've got a healthcare company. Trying to rebuild the entire healthcare system for the entire planet, all from the ground up, mostly because I'm a glutton for punishment. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get healthcare to billions and billions of people, trying to get healthcare to the people who need it most on this planet. Aside from that, I also am a fairly active angel. I'm probably in about 300 or so companies. And in my spare time, oh wait, I don't have spare time. Yep, that's my story.
That's amazing. It's an amazing overview. I want to start by asking about what you've been fascinated by recently. We talked in the last interview about your kind of problem focus. One of the questions I always ask, I'm really excited to hear your answer, is what you've been intrigued by lately. What can't you stop thinking about? It can't be anything.
So one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about is in Silicon Valley today, we spend an enormous amount of time working on what I like to think of as the low hanging fruit, right? Like we always go after the problems that in some ways are the easiest to fund, the easiest to execute. The I don't know. I think the YC guys are going to hate me for saying this, but I look through the YC batch of 500 companies, and I frankly I fall asleep. I'm not saying that those companies aren't going to be like, real businesses. I think some of them are, but I fall asleep. Like in some ways, it's like where are the companies that are truly changing the world? Where are like these days? You can count on one hand the Teslas and the SpaceXs, the people that say like I'm going to just go after like an entire industry and change how it works. And we're afraid of going after things that aren't just bits, going after the real atoms. We're afraid of things that take 10 or 20 or even 30 years. We're afraid of things that take a lot of money to go after. We're afraid of things that truly impact humanity. And I think it's a bummer. Now, one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about is how can I take industries and make them go exponential, right? One of the most fascinating things about when you look at the SpaceXs and the Teslas is that they're taking industries that you don't think of as exponential industries, and they're fundamentally making them go exponential, right? We took rockets. Rockets were roughly kind of going along incrementally, and now you can look at the pace of innovation, and it's literally taking off. No pun intended. You can look at automotive, and literally, Tesla for 17, 18 years was underestimated, and then overnight, just boom, starts to go exponential. At Ford, we're trying to do the exact same thing with healthcare. We ask ourselves, can we get healthcare to a billion people? Literally, Kaiser's 75 years old. They have roughly 11, 12 million users. Like they can be going another 500 years. They'll never get to a billion people, right? So we ask ourselves, how can we build the first healthcare system that covers literally the entire planet? But why are we not asking ourselves this for every industry? Why does this not exist for food? Why does this not exist for education? Why are we not doing this? And this is one of the things that I think is kind of the lost art of Silicon Valley. So I've been spending a lot of time kind of trying to wrap my head around that.
So well said. I feel like someone just needs to write a book or do a short tape on like where the hell is the ambition? Why is it gone? And how do we get it back? And how do we fund it and create a system that can actually push it forward? I want to talk for a second about your superpowers. When you think about building the company, the experience, the team at Forward, you've done a bunch of incredible stuff before Forward. What do you think of as your superpowers and how have those helped you to build Forward?
So I always hate the word superpower because it feels like it's like one of the most arrogant things you can say about yourself. But if I'm going to answer it nonetheless, I think one of the things that I'm decent at, it's going to sound fairly obnoxious, is I'm really decent at being incredibly stubborn. There's a lot of times in my life where I believe something that nobody else around me believes. And it's really hard to know something that everybody is telling you you're wrong on, literally everybody, and say, you know what? Kindly, fuck all of you. I'm just going to keep doing it anyway. And not only am I going to keep doing it, I'm going to bet the fucking farm on it. And I'll tell you, when I started Forward, literally everybody was like, you're wrong. Like on like 14 different counts. And in fact, the only reason we were able to raise money, it's like, I remember we went up to the who's who, the Mark Benioffs, the Eric Schmidts, the Vinod Khoslas, and every single one of them, this isn't going to work. You can't get consumers to pay for healthcare. You can't operate in a regulated space. You can't get doctors to. By the way, we're going to give you money just because, you're Adrian, you got a decent resume, whatever. You're going to pivot. And but this is like the 17th time in my life where it's like the amount of times people have told me like, oh, what you're doing will not work. Even in Forward, like we have a big project we're working on right now that we haven't announced, where at the beginning of this project, everybody in this company was like, no, this is a bad idea. Now the entire company is working on it. It's like, well, hold on, what changed? And one of the things is ideas are incredibly fragile. It's very, very easy for an idea to die on the vine. And so you have to have an enormous amount of conviction in your idea. I actually have another a company I want to start right now that I've talked to people about for a few years. I'm not going to start it while doing Forward, but if I ever do another company, this is going to be my idea. And everybody I've talked to about it says it's a terrible idea. And I'm 100% convinced it's a great idea. And one of the things that's amazing to me is the amount to which I'm like, but I know that if I go build that product, every single one of you will use that product. But think of how much like you have to have mental fortitude to bring something to bear. So when you think about companies, when you think about startups, an insane amount is just willing something into existence. Because if you can't get past literally the naysayers, like it turns out that the motions, that putting your left foot in front of your right foot is not actually going to happen if you're not past your own demons in your mind. And so that I think is one of my superpowers. And then the second that kind of goes part and parcel with that is at some point getting somebody to agree with you. It's like you see something that others don't see, and at some point, you need to be able to convey that. Even if you can't get somebody on day one, you need to, I don't know, draw a picture or build a prototype or get some momentum enough that others will start to see your way. And once you do, that's how you slowly start to change the world.
Yeah, you sound very decent at both of those, and I mean they do sound like superpowers. I'll change the name of that. I'll change the phrasing of that question going forward. I want to talk for a second about health, and I don't know, health in general, kind of performance boosters, maybe a little bit. And the question I want to ask was, I'm guessing, during this interview, I've been looking at, you have this ring on your finger, which I'm guessing might be an Oura ring. Clearly Forward is a very technology focused company. We're in an age where right now, I find it amazing just the amount of interesting innovations that's going on, whether it's 8 Sleep or Whoop or Aura or, a whole host of companies. What are you most excited about? And are there any supplements, wearables, products, tools that you use and love?
I'm going to be really annoying here and say no. And the reason is I think they're all garbage. And I'm not trying to knock the Aura people. I actually don't think it's their fault. I think that we've created things in essence, the wrong order. When you look at digital cameras from 20 years ago, digital cameras were cool. Digital cameras were awesome, but they didn't really do that much, right? We walked around, we took some photos. I call this the sharper image era, right? I had a digital camera, but I actually had 17 like stupid shits that I bought every Christmas, and I don't know, I bought them, I used them for a week, and I threw them away. And then we got the iPhone, and the second we had the iPhone, everything changed. Now, the reason is because these things can't really live by themselves, right? It turns out that a connected toaster is like a fucking like waste of my time. And this is roughly a connected toaster, right? And by that, what I mean is, what does this do? Well, every day I wake up and I will tell you what it does. Every day it tells me I slept terribly. No shit, I slept terribly. Thank you. Now what? Well, what you really want it to do is you really want it to like connect up to my doctor. You really want it to tell me what to do next, change my diet, change my exercise, help me with my mental health, change my life. But it's not. Why? Because it's not my doctor. Well, it's a little like the connected toaster without the iPhone. It's like your Nest without your iPhone. It's like your connected TV without your iPhone. It's like at some point, I need that base that they all connect up to connect to my life. And they don't have that, right? There is no digital doctor. So we need to create that digital doctor first. And then all these things need to plug in. My watch the other day did this really fun thing where it goes, your heart rate has been elevated for the last 10 minutes and you are not moving around. And I was like, first off, like, oh God, that's a little scary. And second off, I was like, now what? And it was like, you should do something about that. And I was like, really? like, like, what do you mean you should do something about that? Like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Or my watch does this thing where it like records my it's got that like hearing loss thing where it's like you have been exposed to loud noises, because I think I was at a club or something. And it's like, great, like now what? It's like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's like, great, I don't know, hand somebody a stethoscope. Just go around and for Christmas, go get your friends stethoscopes and just be like, great, now your heart's going to be better. I got you a stethoscope. No, it's not. What are you doing? Like this is insane, right? And so like what you realize is like we've done the 10% of the problem. We've given somebody a piece of data. In fact, in healthcare these days, they talk about like data overload, data overload. We're giving people too much data. Yeah, it's because you forgot to build the damn product. You know, it's like this is absurd. My thermostat collects a million data points. It didn't give me the data. It just told me like, here's what you need to do. You know, it's like, but again, we forgot to build the doctor. So build the damn digital doctor. That's what we actually need.
So well said. I hope that's the secret project that you might be working on it forward, because it's badly needed, and you need to you need to integrate all these things. It's obvious.
Except that it's
Yes.
not so secret.
Yes. Yes. I'd love to talk about lessons learned for a second. Your background's fascinating. I'll just quickly recap some of the highlights you touched on at the beginning. You've been an advisor to the White House on the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. You're the founder of Sidewalk Labs at Google, and you were director of special projects to Larry Page, who was the CEO of Google at the time, basically helping create a bunch of alphabet companies. So the question I want to ask is, you've clearly worked with, I think, what anyone would say is an incredible cohort of people. What are some of the most interesting principles, mental models, rules of thumb? What did you pick up from some of these people?
Yeah, so I've got a bunch. So I don't know that there's like any one that like rules them all, but let me give you a couple thoughts. One thought is it's just as easy to work on something that's big as something that's small. So I was asked, like, pretend you were going to go and say, I'm going to build a startup that builds a better spoon. Literally, we're just going to sell spoons. What are you going to do? Raise a couple $1,000,000, get a couple people in a room, work on the product for a year, ship a product. Okay. I'm going to work on a startup that works on reinventing all of healthcare. I'm going to raise a couple $1,000,000, get some people in a room, work on a product, ship a product in a year. So look, at some point, like, you're going to spend a lot of hours, you're going to have a lot of fucking stress. You might as well work on something that matters. Don't work on the damn spoon. So the first thing is, I just want to spend my life on things that are truly, truly impactful, things that are meaty, things that are deep, right? The second thing is, care deeply about the problem, not about your idea. And we talked about this, but people tend to get super damn attached to their ideas, to their solutions. And I've never really understood why. It's like, your idea, like, whatever, it's an idea you came up with in 5 seconds. It's going to be wrong. You're going to ship it. You're going to ship your spoon. You're going to learn that the spoon could be better. You're going to ship V2 of the spoon, then V3, then V17, then V49. There's going to be a lot of spoons. Don't care about your idea. Care about the problem that it solves. Problems tend not to change. Why are you doing it? Do people need healthcare? Do people need spoons? Why are you in the game? Because that tends not to change for quite some time. And that's the thing that I think truly matters.
Those are great, and I love how you worked spoons so heavily into all of those examples. It's the world's most amazing. I can't wait to find a founder that pitches me on a better spoon. I'd love to talk for a second about your philosophy for building a company like Forward. If you had to distill down your business and company building philosophies, your guiding principles into just a few words, what would those be?
I'm not sure that it's that different than what I just said, which is everything should ladder down from the problem, right? Companies exist in service of a problem. we tend these days to care more about the problem, especially in Silicon Valley. We care more about the company than the reason we created the company. In fact, you probably know tons of people are like, I'm starting a company. Great. What are you doing? I don't know. I'm working through a few ideas. It's kind of weird. Like, really? It's like, I'm driving somewhere. Where are you driving? I don't know, but I'm driving somewhere. I'll let you know when I get there. Really? That's kind of odd. Like, I thought the point of the car was to get you to, okay, whatever. And so I just like, why are you doing what you're doing? Start with the why, start with the problem, work backwards, right? If you're not doing that, frankly, you're on it's fool's errand. It's like fool's mission. And so I vehemently say, like, work backwards from the problem and stay maniacally focused on it.
Well, I love that example that you shared as well too, which is the founder that's trying out 50 different, ideas and instead just figuring out a really compelling problem that you actually want to spend 10 years and a lot of sweat and frustration and, blood, sweat and tears building. I think that's a much more interesting frame for that. I want to talk for a second about books, and this one I'm going to leave super wide open. And the question I want to ask is just what books have had an impact on you, and what books do you love and recommend to others? And this could be founders, could be fiction, could be anything.
It's a funny thing because I don't. I'm going to say something that's going to be terrible. I'm not a fan of books. I think books are. I'm a very big fan of books for entertainment. You want to read Harry Potter, read Harry Potter. Books for knowledge consumption, I think, are just a highly inefficient way of consuming knowledge. You're reading, like, in 300 pages what you could consume in 4 pages, and I've always thought that to be incredibly absurd. But I'd much rather read Wikipedia. I think it's an incredibly dense, really great way to consume information. That being said, if you do want to read a book, Factfulness by Hans Rosling is one of the most amazing reads. It's incredibly easy, like a 9-year-old could read it. But it's a really great way to help you understand how clueless we are about the world. We have these assumptions about the state of the world that are almost entirely wrong. We have these assumptions like, the vast majority of the world is living in poverty, and the vast majority of the world is, and most women in third world countries can't drive. And it's like, all of this is just wrong. And so it's really good at giving us perspective on where humanity is. And so I'd highly recommend it.
That's a fantastic book, and no one has recommended that. So bonus points for that one. I'll be excited to include that in the show notes. Two final questions. I want to talk about habits for a second. And, this is a very tired question asking about habits and routines, but I think there's something interesting here. The way I like to ask it is, what tiny habit or practice has had the biggest positive impact on your life or your performance? And it can be anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you one, but it's not a tiny one. Or it depends on tiny. I cycle a lot. I cycle tons. I cycle usually a couple hours every morning. And the reason that it's super valuable is it's my version of meditation. I'm like, go, go, go. I'm on my computer every 2 seconds. I'm getting inbounds every five. Like, it's one of the few times where it's like, I can't be on my phone, or it's very hard, very dangerous. I cycle in the mountains, and it's just, you process everything in your head, you let it all go. It puts me in my happy place, and it's just fantastic. It's a great place to be.
It's your version of meditation, which is moving and exerting a lot of effort and struggle and strife. Last question. If you could go back to the start of your career, start of your life, and whisper some words of advice in your ear, is there anything you would tell yourself?
Yeah, I would buy Microsoft stock. No. So I would say, yeah, what I would say is, on your deathbed, the only thing you're going to care about is in work is impact. You're not going to care about money, and you're not going to care about title or career. Spend no time thinking about it. Spend no time valuing it. You're just going to care about what your life meant. I think it's very easy to get caught up. I was lucky to learn this lesson early, but I think it's very easy to get caught up in the rat race. And then you wake up and you're like, this was dumb. I just wasted a bunch of years on this shit. And, like, it just does not matter. But what does matter is what you did with your life. And so that's what I would tell myself.
Well, and it goes back kind of beautifully to your previous point around it's just as easy to work on something big as it is to work on something small. Thank you so much for the time, Adrian. This has been one of my favorite interviews. I really appreciate it.
Not at all. It was an absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me.